Hi everyone, I'm Keshi and welcome back to Keshi's Corner. Can you believe that it's already 2026? I know, time flies. 2025 went by so fast for me, more so than other years. I know everybody says that, but with moving to a different part of Canada midway through the year, I feel like the year really disappeared before I had time to blink. And that being said, with all these happening, my 2025 hasn't been the most productive, or in terms of my healthy habits, hasn't been the healthiest habits of the year. That's not a sentence, but you got the point. However, in 2026, I am determined to go back to how I was in 2023, 2024, where I was making lots of progress, lost a bunch of weight, and basically was the healthiest version of myself. So I did it before, I can do it again, and I want to do it with you all. So in today's episode, we are going to talk about the 26 non-negotiables for 2026. For me at least, but I think a lot of those would benefit most of you guys. So while some of them might be more personal, I feel like most of it is things that you may or may not have on your list to do in 2026 anyway. So let's get started. The first one is hydration. I have my water right here with me, and I am dedicated. I'm committed to being more hydrated in 2026. I don't know how I was not in 2025 because for multiple years in a row, that was one thing that I actually two things that and my workouts consistently. I had no problem doing any of this. It was habit, it was just part of my routine. It was a non-negotiable, I guess, but it just happened so easily. I didn't really think about any of this. And then I don't know where I fell off from those healthy habits. And I definitely noticed it because I would start feeling headachy. Headachy, is that a term? Another non word that I've been using. I've been starting to feel like I've got headaches, super weak, and I was blaming it on my iron, my low iron, which another thing on my list is to take my supplements because I do have low iron. However, a good part of this was not drinking enough water. But in my mind, I was still like I was again back in 2023, 2024, where I was drinking plenty of water. So I did not even think or consider that this might be the problem because in my mind, I'm very well hydrated. Needless to say, I was not in 2025. I would say I started falling off around 2024, midway through to 2025. But yeah, we're getting back on track this year. This is the year to have another glow up, to really get back on track. Another glow up would be ideal because I am getting married in July. So perfect timing. But just in general, even after that, I want to stay with those healthy habits and build on top of those rather than always feeling like I've got it for a couple months and then just fall off and have to start the same habits again every year. Again, a little disappointed in me for some of those habits that I used to and not doing anymore. But anyway, I will say drinking water came back to me a lot more easily than I thought it would because I've been, as soon as I just think about it and remain mindful to have water every day, it's not hard. Again, I had the habit before. Some people might not want to drink water at all, in which case I would say add some flavor to it. Add lemon is a big thing. I could chug down so much water in the morning if I add some lemon to it. So I don't think that lemon water necessarily does anything to detox your body. Anything. That's what your liver is here for. But it does add that little taste that allows you to drink a lot more of it and not feel like I can't have any more of this. So I've started drinking some lemon water in the morning just so I can get a good amount of water. And then just throughout the day, always carrying a bottle with me, always reminding myself to drink water until it becomes automatic again, like it used to be. The second one is 8 to 10,000 steps every day. This one has been off and on. I would say most of the time I was able to get the 8 to 10,000 steps rather easily if I was mindful about it. And that's the thing that I noticed. I was not thinking of any of the habits. And when one or two fall off, I feel sluggish. And then, especially when I don't eat properly, and then I don't want to do any of the other habits that come after. Whereas when I eat properly, nutritious whole foods, then everything else is bam, bam, bam. Like I'm productive. I'm that girl, basically. So I just have to realign a couple of those things this year to make sure it's a great glow up year, like I said. But 8 to 10,000 steps, again, that's nothing too crazy. If I can get more on some days, great. If not, 8 to 10,000 steps at least is what I want to get. And I'm tracking everything this year in my little journal. So I will know for sure. A lack of tracking was one of the main reasons I fell off. As I'm talking to you guys, it's allowing me to think more of the why I fell off. For example, I wasn't tracking properly. But anyway, the third thing is eating healthy. Like I said, when I don't eat whole foods, when I don't eat healthy, even when I don't track my food, which is another thing that I used to do back in my glow up year, and then I wanted to get away from always having to track all the time, which is fine. However, then I just didn't. I just ate whatever because I'm not tracking it anymore. So I will just eat it. That's not what we want to do. I don't know if I want to track for the whole 6 months or a year this year, or if I want to eat more mindfully again, but whole foods. However, what I do know, and I might change that technique of what I want to do throughout, which is fine. Again, it's not about making sure I track all the time or making sure I don't track but only eat whole foods. It's just about eating healthy. So maybe for a month or two where I actually want to lose weight, I will be tracking a little bit more mindfully. And then other times where I want to maintain, I might try to again go away from tracking and more towards whole foods. I can make a whole different episode on why I want to get away from tracking all the time, but just in summary, it's because when I track, I tend to always go for the low calorie options, even if that's not always the best option. So I get scared of then adding oil to cook some food or adding some butter to cook some eggs. Whereas that's better than necessarily opting for a protein bar, which makes sense. But sometimes when you're tracking, you feel like every calorie counts. So you don't want to be adding butter and oil. I tend to stay away from fats in general, which is not good. But again, the goal this year is just to eat healthy, whichever aspect that is. So if it is to lose weight and to add tracking into it, that's fine. If it is to go away from tracking, but just eating healthy, whole foods, I do want to go towards the aspect of whole foods more and more, which I've done a good yeah, I've been pretty good in 2025. I would say that's one thing that I've done more than in the previous years where everything else was great, but I was tracking, so I wasn't eating a lot of whole foods. Whereas last year it was a lot of, eggs, steak, chicken, could be more fruit and vegetables. But we're doing better this year. The next one is lotion, which now I'm hiding my hands because I have dry hands. I have very, very dry skin. And lotion is something that I have to be mindful of. Maybe I will add it to my journal or something as a daily habit to just remind myself to do on a daily basis, more than once a day, obviously, especially during winter here. It's not as dry in Cape Breton as it was in Alberta, but it still is very important for me to stay hydrated and stay moisturized. Yay. The next one, I'm looking at I noted everything in my little planner actually. I have so many journals. I will talk about each one of them in a different episode. But the next one is to track my expenses daily. That's another thing that really got out of hand and not tracked at all is my expenses. I keep trying to have a monthly budget, but it wasn't really working for me because I was not tracking on a daily or weekly basis. I think weekly is okay, but I tend to forget a couple of things, a couple of expenses if I'm only doing it weekly. So I think what works best for me and makes things less overwhelming is to track daily. And that just means noting down the revenue I had for the day and the expenses I had for the day. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. And then monthly, I can assess. So it's not going in every day assessing or analyzing the whole uh daily expenses. It's just noting down. So, oh, did you pay mortgage today or gas or groceries? Just okay, put it there. That also allows me to keep my receipts in one place. So I've always been when people ask, do you want your receipt at the store? I always say yes. But then I always lose them or end up throwing them in the trash and things like that. So I don't want to do this. Whenever cashiers ask me if I want my receipt, I always say yes, but I never know what to do with them really. I end up throwing them in the trash or losing them or something, and there's no really good way of tracking. However, then when there are returns and things like that, sometimes I get a little more panicked or I panic a little because I don't know where my receipts are. I have to go fishing for them and hunting for them. And I don't want that. Whereas if I have all my receipts in one place for the month, I might even staple them on each page in a journal, a separate journal for that, or have a folder for it or something. But a place where it will be organized. So beginning of month first to the end of the month. And if I track my expenses daily, that's easy because I only have to keep those receipts with me until the end of the day where I go and put it in my journal or online or wherever I want to track it. For me personally, it's in an online spreadsheet, but I will physically be keeping my receipts in a folder or more more likely a journal. Again, stapling it on each page. I have yet to know if that's the right way to do it, but I will try and then come back with an update. The sixth non-negotiable this year is reading classics. I have read one classic last year. I think that was my goal to just read one classic last year because they intimidated me a lot and I did it. So, yay. But this year, it was actually Frankenstein. I really loved it. Not only was it nice in terms of the English and vocabulary that I got from it in sentence structures, but even the morals of the story. And I really noticed a difference between a lot of the books I was reading otherwise, which I think I read 25 to 30 books last year. So a lot of those books, especially thrillers, they're great, they're nice and fun, but it's all dialogue. There's not much to it in terms of a moral, and it's just very simplistic. It's great in terms of finding who the killer is or whatever, but again, very simplistic. And I want to read some more books to stimulate me intellectually. And just, I want to be disgustingly educated this year. So that's what we're doing. So, reading more classics. I think I want to read between 5 and 12 classics this year, ideally one every month. But even if I read 5 classics, that would be a win in my books because it's 5 times what I read last year in terms of classics. The next one along the same lines would be to be articulate or be more articulate. So I feel like I used to be so well spoken, especially when I was in university. Maybe I wasn't, but I thought I was. However, what I for sure was more well spoken or articulate than what I've been in the past couple months. I don't know if it's just my surroundings or being around more people that say and like more. So I tend to adapt to my environment a little bit too much sometimes. But I've just been saying and like so much and going on and on without really saying much. And I don't like this. So this year, what I've been trying to do is really pause when I'm talking and not start a sentence without knowing what I'm going to say. Why would I start a sentence with, um, I should just think about it first. And once I know what I'm going to say, then start my sentence. Another thing is me finishing up one thought or one line of thought before I move on to the next one, which I am known to not do. I was always the type of person to just go on tangents when I'm telling a story. So I will say something and remember, oh, by the way, go on a tangent. And by the way, go on a second and third tangent. And by the end of my story, I'm lost and you're lost, and there's not a point to it. So being more articulate, but also better at writing. I read a short story that I wrote and featured in Collection Maurice when I was, I believe, a teenager, maybe 15, 16. There were 2 years in a row, actually, that I did that. And I went back and read those stories, and I loved it. It was fiction, but the expressions I used, just the way I wrote, it wasn't that it was the best English ever. But considering I was, what, 14, 15, 16, it was beautiful. Again, a lot with the expressions that I use to describe things. Just fiction, nothing like classic writing. But now I should be doing better with my writing rather than worse. So I want to do more writing so that I can have more flowery writing, better writing in general. And that really goes in hand with being articulate, because that's just how my thoughts would be more put together and more coherent is the word. I don't know if we're on point 6 or 7 right now, but the next one, 6, 7, or 8, is I also want to read on different topics, including science and philosophy. So I have been reading nonfiction, but usually it's business books. And this year I want to be more well rounded. So that means reading more science books, so physics, chemistry, biology, as well as more philosophy books. I do want to read meditations or some other books on stoicism or something, some philosophy books. I don't know exactly which ones, and my goal would really be one of each topic for this year, because again, I also have 12 classes, 12 classics that I do want to read amongst others. So my goal is not to be reading the whole year all the time. It's just to make sure the books that I'm reading are, as I said, intellectually stimulating me. Not to say that I will not be reading any novels just for fun, but that's to add on the books that I read for culture and getting more intelligent. Along with that, number 9, let's just say, is reading more articles and essays, and potentially also writing some essays. But I do want to learn every single day. And I've always wanted that. My dad always taught me to learn for knowledge and not for exams. So I want to read more articles this year, more essays, and actually getting things from peer reviewed articles, for example, and scholarly articles or essays to know what's happening in the world, but not just politics or news or things like that, but actually science things and tech things and AI, and learning about all those different topics on a weekly basis. The next one I'm so excited about, but my 10th non negotiable is journaling. This year, I have probably 7 different journals. I will go into more detail about each one in a separate video, but basically, I have one as my habits journal on a day to day. I have one to track my expenses. I have one which is my gratitude journal, one which is my vision board journal, because this year I want to make it into a journal. So not only do I have the pictures, I had my vision board last year, but that was more like a 5-year vision board. Didn't really have a timeline, but it was what I want in life in general, which is great. But now this year, I want to make one for just this year. And I have my little bingo card on it of what I want to accomplish, as well as, again, the pictures. And I will be adding or writing, journaling about it each day or whenever I get closer to one of those goals to really make it feel more tangible. So I have multiple journals. Again, love journaling. It really allows me to get my thoughts in a more cohesive way, I would say. So it has helped me become less overwhelmed. And basically, my mind is not like there is a monkey running around all the time in there. So I am more calm. I know where things are. If I don't need to remember all the things all the time, I can just note it down. Highly recommend journaling. I will be talking more about it in future episodes for sure. Next one, 11th non-negotiable. I talked over this already a little bit, but vitamins and supplements. I've been bad at taking my vitamins and supplements last year. Got to be better at it this year. That's an easy one. I don't know why I was bad at it. It's just making sure I have my little box with all the supplements in it, and I just need to take it every day. Gonna be better at it this year. 12 non-negotiable is meditation. Meditation, when I do it, really makes me more calm, less emotional. So I will attempt to do it on a daily basis, but if not, even 2 to 3 times a week is good. Some meditation, some visualization, it really grounds me. And I don't really know how to explain it, but it works. I only do 10 minutes. I don't do a lot of it, but it really helps. The next one is daily and weekly planning, and then also a monthly bingo card. I talked about my yearly bingo card of the goals for the year, but this year we're really, when I say this year's focused on tracking, it really is because we are tracking daily or planning daily, so to do list for the day, and weekly, what I aim to accomplish for the week, mostly because I have so many different business things going on. So I have Wedding Boulevard and I have a newsletter and I have my merch business. I have so many different things. I want to do digital products. And I tend to also get overwhelmed with all of those because they're all in my head. Whereas now we're going to track it down weekly planning for each one. At the end of the week, we're going to do an audit of that week, how the plan was. Maybe I pushed for too much. And next week, I will aim for less, but making sure everything is getting done. And then I will do a monthly bingo card, what I aim to accomplish each month. And that should hopefully get me closer and closer to my yearly goal. So it's not like we're just trying to manifest it without putting any effort in. We're actually working towards each of those goals. Next one, habit 14, is to stretch more. I was also terrible at this in 2025. It just hurts because I'm so tired everywhere. But stretching, I don't have much to say on it. I just need to stretch more and I will. I've started doing it. It's good. It's easier once I do it. It's just I never do it after my workouts and then it gets more and more difficult when I do it. Fifth habit is a nightly cleanup. Okay, hear me out here. I tended to wait for the weekend to do a cleanup. And then it would be this big cleanup and it would take a couple hours and I would be exhausted by the end of it. And I would feel like all week I'm working and then the weekend I'm cleaning up and I never had to have time to relax. However, I've started doing a nightly cleanup, which is just a little declutter and a little cleanup. So that means kitchen, making sure all the dishes are washed, but that usually I would do anyway. But not even leaving. Sometimes I would leave them for the next day because I'm so tired. Not anymore. Making sure it's washed the night of. And I told Jason by 8 p.m., the kitchen is closed. So if you're going and making anything else, or I can make you more things, but then you wash the dishes if it's after that because I can't always be going and you know, I go to bed at 9, so if things are happening after 9, I don't want to always be cleaning up and always be washing the dishes. So until 8, it's totally fine. I'll do it. But anything after the kitchen is closed, when I wake up in the morning, I still want it to be clean, right? Because there's nothing worse than you cleaning up everything and it looks so nice, and you wake up in the morning and it's all a mess again. Like, no. But that's the thing with it. So cl- cleaning up the kitchen, wiping all the surfaces and counters, vacuuming everywhere, decluttering if there's any clothes anywhere, living room, on the chairs or anything like that, putting everything back, not just tossing them in the bedroom, putting them back in the closet or laundry hamper if they need to be. And when I wake up in the morning, it's decluttered, it's clean, it's tidy. It's beautiful. And then on the weekly basis, I still go and do my weekly cleanup. So cleaning bathrooms, changing the sheets, washing the sheets, and things like that. But there's less to do because I feel like everything that's cluttered, well, it's not anymore. It still looks tidy and clean. Now I go in and do more things. And it shouldn't take as long. And it only really takes me 30 minutes max. And I don't think it's that big of a deal. I can just stop watching TV 30 minutes earlier and put a podcast on or something and clean up. The next one is YouTube and podcast. So that's another my 16th non-negotiable for the year is my YouTube and podcast because last year that was also one of the things that was super overwhelming just trying to figure out which one to work on today because I have so much going on and that's just how my mind is. I like having multiple things on the go, but this year is really I'm putting my foot down that I will be posting consistently. And that means allocating my time properly. If I can't do it on a weekly basis, I just have to be consistent on a bi-weekly basis, for example. But I just have to know that that's what we're doing. So that my audience, you guys know as well. I feel like I always let you down from just trying my best, but it no, actually, because if I was trying my best, I would at least be able to get more content out. And the thing is not the filming of the videos, it's always editing. So allocating my time to edit, maybe I would put 2 days a week where I would edit because I don't want to be editing every day. 2, maybe 3 days because I do have multiple different channel things to edit. But if I don't get those out, there's no point in filming more things. That's what I tend to do. I just film and film and film, and then there's no editing and it never goes up. No point in doing that. The 17th non negotiable is saying no more often, which I was really good at in university. And then I started saying yes more often, even when I wasn't sure again last year. This year, I want to go back to saying no more often because I have all those things that I want to work on, especially this year. If it's not a hell yes, it's a no. And being unapologetic about it, being nice about it, obviously not being rude, but also not being pressure to say yes to multiple different things. I think it more so happened that I went back to saying yes a little bit more because I moved to a new place. And that's the phase that I had to be in to get to know people around me, to know what things are around me, which was totally fair, totally fine. I do appreciate that I said yes to a lot of those opportunities, but now I can go back to, I don't feel like it's a new place for me anymore. I'm totally settled where I am. So I can go back to saying no more often and staying home and getting one of my million hobbies or businesses taken care of. The 18th non negotiable for me is being put together. No more being sloppy, just staying in my PJs or even going to work with okay outfits. We will be dressed to the nines to go to work and even going out, maybe not dressed to the nines, but actually at least put together and having some makeup on or something, but feel it makes me feel a lot more confident. It makes me a lot more productive when I'm dressed up rather than when I'm in my PJs. And then it also makes me feel nice and cozy when I get to change into that PJ or my onesie later. Not onesie, my hoodie. That's what it's called. Later at night, and that's really my relaxed time, reading time, and going to bed, my wind down time. And I like being able to clearly differentiate those two. My 19th non negotiable is learning a new recipe every month. So, one of my goals is really getting better at cooking and baking. And that's one thing that I did very well last year. I This year, January 2026, I have a lot more good recipes, both for cooking, for meals, and for desserts or baked goods than I had in January 2024. So I'm very happy about that. But this year, I will also be learning a new recipe every month. So that will be 12 new recipes every at the end of next year. Ideally, I want this habit to be a new recipe that I do like every month. So if one doesn't work out, I will try a couple more because I do want to, at the end of this year, to have at least 10 recipes that I can do or make on a weekly basis. not a weekly basis, but on a regular basis. And when I look at my planner for what to make for the meals during the week, I want to have options. 20th non-negotiable is to prioritize self-education. I did talk about that with reading, but this one is specifically through podcasts and maybe YouTube and things like a word of the day. So really, like I said, self-education will be very important, will take a very important place in my life this year, like it should for many years, maybe for the foreseeable future at least, but self-education through podcasts. So I last year canceled my Spotify premium because I got YouTube premium instead and I thought I didn't need both. But I noticed that I listen to a lot more podcasts on Spotify rather than on YouTube. So right now I don't have the premium for Spotify, but I've been using it to listen to my podcasts. And if I need to, I'll just get the Spotify premium again. I just didn't want to have unnecessary subscriptions that I don't use at all. But I don't know. On YouTube, I tend to just watch other random videos, whereas on Spotify, I think it's a lot better organized for podcasts. So they have podcast channels, and then I don't know. And I'm not sure why exactly, but I tend to just stay on the productive listening loop when I'm listening through Spotify. So that's what we're going to do. 21st non negotiable is to measure progress. We're tracking everything this year, including measurements, progress pictures. I'm putting everything, including pictures, in my journals. We'll really be tracking every single thing and auditing it at the end of the month, and especially at the end of the year. 22nd non-negotiable is more vegetables and more fiber. I noticed around the end of 2025 that my fiber intake was really, really low. So we'll be bumping that up this year. I'm taking fiber supplements for now until I'm able to naturally bump out my vegetables and fruit to get to that amount. Sometimes I struggle a little bit when I'm trying to lose weight and eat less and to make sure I'm getting all my fruits and vegetables in. But that's on the list. The next one is learning Spanish. So I do know, I would say beginner to intermediate Spanish, beginner when it comes to speaking, intermediate when it comes to reading. But I do want to get to an intermediate level by the end of the year where I'm able to speak to somebody native in a casual conversation and actually have a full casual conversation with them where we understand each other in Spanish. 24th non-negotiable is getting better at making creative plates or hosting. So we don't host that much, but we do go out to other people's spaces more often for things and I bring something. So living here, we have a habit of making something homemade to bring rather than buying something to bring. And this year, actually in December, I made a couple of creative plates, just charcuterie boards of some sort to bring. I'll post some pictures here if you're watching the video. But next year, I want to get or this year actually, I want to get a little bit more into making those creative plates or platters with food, even if it's just, again, the cheese boards or fruit boards or things like that. The next one is using ChatGPT better. So I want to use ChatGPT to think better or think deeper about a topic or concept rather than to stop thinking. So I'm not going to ask ChatGPT to do everything for me to write all my emails or things like that. However, if I need it to help me go deeper with things, it's definitely an excellent tool. So being able to use ChatGPT better, I can make a whole new video on that just to really how and when and why to use ChatGPT to enhance what we're doing rather than hinder it. And the last thing on my list, my 26th non-negotiable for 2026 is to create more than I consume. That's a goal in general that I had for the past couple years, and I've been slowly trying to do it. But this year, especially with saying, hey, I'm going to be more consistent with YouTube and podcast, I want to create a lot more than I consume. When I when I say that, I mean consuming for fun because I will be consuming a lot of information through books, podcasts, and things like that that are educational content. That's fine, but I want to create more than what I consume for fun. So that would be TV or movies, TV shows or movies, or just random videos or doom scrolling. We're really going to try to limit that this year. Actually, a bonus one is try to not be on my phone when I'm out at dinner, but we'll see how this one is because I don't know why I always tend to reach for my phone. So that's something else that we will try to not even put the phone on the table this year when we're out at dinner and to actually be a civilized human being. So that was my 26 non negotiables for 2026. I hope that you can have some inspirations for your own 26 non negotiables. Actually, let me know what they are, or even what maybe five of them are in the comments. I would love to know what some of your habits and goals for the year are, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.